When we three men were left alone after dinner, his spirits seemed high. On the pretext of welcoming me, he tried to entice his partner to drink more heavily, and unfortunately, he succeeded. It made me sick at heart to see it.
Come, fellow partner, I'll give you a toast. To the divinest of her sex.
What? What sex?
I admire and adore her. Agnes Wickfield is, I am safe to say, the divinest of her sex.
What?
To be her father is a proud distinction, but to be her husband... What's the matter? You've not gone mad, Mr. Wickfield. If I say I've an ambition to make your Agnes my Agnes, I've a gooder right to it as another man. I've a better right than any other man.
No! God, Trotwood, hear him. My daughter, my Agnes.
Hush, sir, hush. Think of her. Spare her such a scene as this. I know how you love her.
My darling child. And him. Look at him. Look at my torturer. Through him I've abandoned my name, my reputation, my peace and my home.
I've kept your name and reputation for you, and your peace and your home too.
No.
Don't be foolish. If I've gone a little beyond what you were prepared for, I can go back. There's no harm done.
See what he is. See what he is.
You'd better stop him, Copperfield. He'll say something presently he'll be sorry to have said.
I'll say anything. Why shouldn't I be in all the world's power if I'm in yours?
I tell you, if you don't stop his mouth, you're not his friend. Why shouldn't you be in all the world's power, Mr. Wickfield? Because you've got a daughter. You and me know what we know, don't we? Let sleeping dogs lie. Who wants to rouse them? I don't. I tell you, if I've gone too far, I'm sorry.
Oh, Trotwood, what have I come down to be since I first saw you? I've brought misery on what I dearly love. See the ruin I am and hate me. Shun me. I don't know all I've done, but he knows, for he's always been at my elbow, whispering to me. You heard him. What need have I to say more?
You hadn't need to say so much. Not half so much. Not anything at all. You wouldn't have took it up so if it hadn't been for the wine. You'll think better of it tomorrow, sir.
Papa, Papa, you're not well.
No.
Come with me.
I didn't expect he'd cut up so rough, Master Copperfield. But it's nothing. I'll be friends with him tomorrow. It's for his good. I'm humbly anxious for his good.
Trotwood, you're still up.
I was reading. Agnes.
You leave early in the morning.
Dearest Agnes.
Let's say goodbye now.
I see. You don't want to speak about tonight. But is there nothing that can be done?
There is God to trust in.
It's presumptuous of me to try to influence you, but you know how much I love you, how much I owe you. Agnes, you'll never sacrifice yourself to a mistaken sense of duty.
What?
Think what a priceless gift a love like yours would be. Say you have no such thought.
You need have no fears for me. I have no fears for myself. Good night, Trotwood.
Copperfield? Copperfield?
Yes?
I thought you'd be glad to hear we've made it all smooth. Why, though I'm humble, I'm useful to him, you know. What an agreeable man he is, Master Copperfield.
I'm glad you've made your apologies.
Oh, to be sure. When a person's humble, what's an apology? So easy. I suppose you've sometimes plucked a pear before it was ripe, Master Copperfield?
I suppose I have.
I did that last night. But it'll ripen yet. It only wants attending to. I can wait. Goodbye, Mr. Copperfield. Remember me to your aunt, a most strong-minded lady and very attached to Miss Agnes, I'm glad to say.
On my return to London, I received a letter from Dora's aunt.
The Mrs. Spenlow present their compliments to Mr. Copperfield and beg to inform him that they have given his letter their best consideration with a view to the happiness of both parties. If he will do them the favour to call, accompanied by a confidential friend, on Saturday the 23rd of this month, they will be happy to hold some conversation on the subject. Gentlemen, pray be seated. Mr. Copperfield, I presume?
No, I'm Traddles.
I am David Copperfield.
Mr. Copperfield, my sister Lavinia, being conversant with matters of this nature, will speak for both of us.
We will not discuss the past history of this matter. Our poor brother Francis's death has cancelled that. We have no reason to doubt, Mr. Copperfield, that you are an honourable young gentleman of good character, and that you have an affection, or are persuaded that you have an affection, for our niece.
I love Miss Spenlow. No one could ever love more.
Mr. Copperfield, we have shown your letter to our niece and discussed it with her. We have no doubt that you think you like her very much.
Ma'am.
One minute, Mr. Copperfield.
I beg your pardon.
Mature affection does not easily express itself. It is modest and retiring. It waits and waits. Sometimes a life goes by and finds it still ripening in the shade. I know too well. But no matter.
Lavinia, my dear.
Forgive me. In comparison, the light inclinations of young people are as dust compared to rocks. It is owing to the difficulty of knowing whether they have any real foundation that my sister Clarissa and myself have been very undecided how to act.
But my love for Dora is not a light affection. I can't express how much I love her. Since I met her, I have become more serious, more earnest, more determined to do well in life for her sake. All my friends know this.
Mr. Copperfield is speaking the truth, ma'am. I speak as one who has some little experience, being engaged to a young lady in Devonshire. Her name is Sophie. Oh, she really is the dearest girl. But we see no prospect at the moment of our engagement coming to fruition.
Then, Mr. Traddles, you can confirm what I have said of the affection that is modest and retiring, that waits and waits.
Entirely, ma'am.
It seems to us prudent, Mr. Traddles, to bring these young people's feelings to the test of our observation. Therefore, we are inclined to allow Mr. Copperfield's visits here.
I shall never forget your kindness.
But we do not yet recognise any positive engagement between Mr. Copperfield and our niece. And we prefer to regard these visits as made at present to us. Sister Clarissa, the rest is with you.
We shall be happy to see Mr. Copperfield to dinner every Sunday. Our hour is 3. In the course of the week, we shall be happy to see Mr. Copperfield to tea on 2 occasions, not oftener. Our hour is 6. Miss Trotwood, mentioned in Mr. Copperfield's letter, will perhaps call upon us.
I'm sure my aunt would be delighted.
And now, Mr. Copperfield, if you would like to follow me, I am of the opinion that our niece would wish to see you.
Miss Lavinia took me into another room, where I found my blessed Dora in tears, and Jip in a state of high indignation.
Dear. Oh, Toadie!
My dearest. Oh, don't cry. Now you're mine forever.
Don't, please.
Aren't you mine forever?
Oh, yes. Indeed, I am. But I'm so frightened. And I don't like him. Why won't he go?
Who?
Your friend. It isn't any business of his. What a stupid he must be.
But Traddles is the best creature.
I don't want any best creatures.
Oh, you'll soon know him well and like him very much. And my aunt's coming soon. And you'll like her too when you know her.
No, please don't bring her. I'm sure she's a naughty, mischief-making old thing.
But of course, when my aunt did call, she got on very well with Dora's aunts, and was very fond of Dora herself, who soon admitted she wasn't a naughty, mischief-making old thing at all.
I think your Dora is a very tender little blossom,
And the wind must be gentle with her, Trot.
One thing troubled me. It seemed to me that everybody, Dora's aunts and my aunt too, treated my darling as if she were a pretty toy, a kind of plaything. My aunt always called her Little Blossom, and the pleasure of Miss Lavinia's life was to curl Dora's hair, make ornaments for her, and treat her like a pet child. I wish they'd behave differently to you, dearest, because you're not a child, you know.
Oh, now you're going to be cross. They're very kind to me, and I'm very happy.
But you might still be happy and be treated differently.
If you don't love me, why did you get engaged to me?
Not love you?
Why don't you go away now if you can't bear me?
Oh, I dote upon you, my dearest, you know that.
Then don't find fault with me.
Dora, suppose we were married.
Yes?
And you were going to buy a shoulder of mutton for dinner. Would you know how to buy it?
How to buy it?
Yes.
Why, the butcher would know how to sell it, wouldn't he? So there's no need for me to know anything, you silly boy.
Well, we fell back on flower painting and singing to the guitar, and my cookery book was put in the corner for Jip to stand on. We were as happy as the week was long, although summer had passed and winter was upon us now. One night when I left Dr. Strong's house, I found it was snowing heavily. I walked home as I usually did, and naturally took the shortest route, which led me through St. Martin's Lane. As I went down towards the Strand, I noticed a passing face, a woman's face, and thought that I had some association with it, but I couldn't remember what. On the steps of the church, there was the stooping figure of a man. He had put some burden down on the snow to adjust it, but as I passed by, he rose and turned towards me. It was Mr. Peggotty.
Master Davy! Oh, it do my heart good to see you. Well met.
Well met, my dear old friend.
I had my thoughts of coming to make inquirations for you tonight, but I've been down Yarmouth way, and I heard as your aunt was living along of you, so I was afraid it was too late. I would have come early in the morning, sir, before going away.
Going away? Again?
Yeah, I'm away tomorrow.
Where are you going now?
Oh, we're going to turn in somewhere.
There's an inn I know across the way, the Golden Cross. It has public rooms where we can talk. Come with me. Drink this, Mr. Peggotty. It'll warm you.
Oh, thank you kindly, sir.
You'll have nothing stronger than ale?
No, sir. Thank you, sir. Now, I'll tell you where all I've been and what all we've heard. I've been far and we've heard little, but I'll tell you. When Emily was a child, she used to talk to me a deal about the sea. About them coasts where the sea got to be dark blue and lay a-shining in the sun. And I knowed in my mind as he'd take her to them countries. He'd have told her wonders on 'em and how she was to be a lady there. So I went across the channel to France.
As he spoke, I saw the door move and the snow drift in. It moved a little more, and a hand softly interposed to keep it open.
I went on my way through France.
Alone? And on foot?
But mainly afoot, sometimes in carts, along with people going to market. At the villages, I'd find the inn and wait about the yard till someone come what spoke English. Mostly someone did. I told them I was seeking my niece. They told me what manner of gentlefolk was in the house. But it were never her. The poor folk helped me. They'd set me down at their cottage doors and give me for to eat and drink. And many a woman had a daughter. About Emily's age. Oh, my darling girl.
There was a face at the door. The woman's face I had passed by the church. And now I knew her. It was the lost soul Emily had wept for. Martha.
At last, I come to the sea. Well, it weren't hard for a seafaring man like me to work his way over to Whitley, and the people was just as good to me there. But then, I got news of her being seen among them Swiss mountains. One as knowed his servant. See them there, all three. I made for the mountains, Master Davy. But when I reached the place, they told me as I was too late. They'd gone. So I come home.
How long ago?
After 5 days, there were some letters. This first one come afore I'd been gone a week. A £50 bank note in a sheet of paper, directed to me and put underneath the door in the night. She tried to hide her writing, but she couldn't never hide it from me. Then, this come from Mrs. Gummidge. Read it, sir.
Thank you.
There were £5 with it. I've kept it with the rest. I'll touch none on it.
She says, write to me some news of Uncle. Was there an address?
There were some like instructions, sir. It seemed it was written close to the places I'd heard in them. Mrs. Gummidge and Ham wrote. They told her I were gone to seek her, and my parting words.
Is that another letter?
Small money, sir. £10. This came day before yesterday. I'm a-going to seek her at the postmark, see?
Yeah. It's a town on the Upper Rhine.
Yeah. There was foreign gentlemen in Yarmouth, dealers who knowed it. They've given me a map. I showed it Ham and told him where I were going.
How is Ham?
Oh, he worked as hard as a man can. His name is as good as any man's anywhere in the world. But it's cut him deep. He's no care for his life now. When there's hard duty to be done with danger in it, he stepped forward afore all his mates. Well, having seen you tonight, Master Davy, I'll be away early tomorrow. All that troubles me is to think that some harm might come to me afore that money was give back to him. I'd go 10,000 mile, I'd go till I drop dead to lay that money down afore him. If I do that and find my Emily, I'm content.
As we left the inn, I saw a figure flit away quickly before us. Martha. I took Mr. Peggotty over Westminster Bridge and parted from him on the Surrey shore. Then I went back to the inn yard and looked round, searching for the listener. But she was gone. The snow had covered our late footprints. My new track was the only one to be seen. And even as I looked back, that too had begun to die away. I was now Dora's acknowledged suitor, accepted by her and approved by her aunts, and consequently much of my time was happily spent in Putney. Agnes and her father were staying with Dr. and Mrs. Strong for a fortnight. Mrs. Heep had come to town with them, and, as might have been expected, Uriah came too, and I had the doubtful pleasure of his company for a turn in the doctor's garden.
You may have been surprised to see me here, Master Copperfield.
No, Uriah. I wasn't surprised in the least.
You see, when a person loves a person, he's a little jealous and anxious to keep an eye on the beloved one.
Oh? Of whom are you jealous now?
Thanks to you, Master Copperfield, of no one in particular just at present. No male person, at least.
Do you mean you're jealous of a female person?
Oh, really, Master Copperfield? You're so insinuating that you draw me like a corkscrew. Well, I don't mind telling you, I'm not a ladies' man in general. And I never was with Mrs. Strong.
What do you mean to say?
When I was but an humble clerk, she always looked down on me. She was forever being a friend to you and my Agnes, Master Copperfield. But I was too far beneath her to be noticed.
Well, suppose you were.
And beneath him, too.
Surely you know the Doctor better than that. Why...
Oh, dear. I was not referring to that poor man. I mean Mr. Malden.
Mr. Malden?
Oh, yes. He couldn't come into the office without ordering and shoving me about. One of your fine gentlemen he was. And she was no friend to such as me. She'd put my Agnes up to higher sort of game. But I've had eyes in my head a long time back. I'm not going to let myself be run down, and I'll do what I can to put a stop to this friendship. I can't allow people in my way.
I don't understand you.
Ah. Don't you, though? I'm astonished at that, Master Copperfield. You being usually so quick. Is that Mr. Malden at the gate?
It looks like him.
Ah.
2 days later, I took Agnes to meet Dora. I was in a flutter of pride and anxiety about it, for Dora was afraid of the meeting.
Agnes, here she is.
Agnes, I feel I know you already. Oh, and this must be Jip.
Yes.
The two girls became friends at once.
Dodie,
Yes, my darling.
do you think if I'd had Agnes for a friend a long time ago, I might have been more clever, perhaps?
Oh, my love, what nonsense.
I've forgotten what relation Agnes is to you.
No blood relation, but we were brought up together, like brother and sister.
I wonder why you ever fell in love with me.
Perhaps because I couldn't see you and not love you.
Suppose you'd never seen me at all.
Suppose we'd never been born. I'm so happy tonight, Agnes. I confess I had been a little anxious.
Anxious, Trot? Why?
Anxious that you should like Dora and that she should like you. When I saw the two of you together, I knew I'd been foolish.
Indeed you were. Dora is a very pretty, very loving, very dear girl. Take great care of her.
I will. I promise you I will. When you were sitting by her, you seemed to me to be her guardian angel too. You've always been mine.
A poor angel, but faithful.
Agnes, I don't want to distress you, but has Uriah troubled you further?
Don't fear for me. The step you dread my taking, I shall never take.
Oh, thank God. You can't know what it is to me to hear you say so. When will you be in London again?
Not for a long time. I think it best, for Papa's sake, if we stay at home. But you'll have news of me, Trotwood. I've promised to write to Dora. Annie Strong's light is still on. She's waiting up for me. If I ever need your help, I'll ask you for it, I promise. God bless you always.
She went in, and I stood for a while looking at the stars. I was about to leave when I saw that there was still a light in the doctor's study, so I turned back to bid him good night. When I opened the study door, I saw to my astonishment that Uriah was there. The doctor sat in his chair with his face in his hands, and Mr. Wickfield, looking very distressed, stood beside him.
Oh, I beg your pardon, sir.
No, Trotwood, don't go.
At any rate, we may keep the door shut. We don't want to make it known to all the town. I felt it incumbent on me, Master Copperfield, to point out to Dr. Strong what you and I have already talked about. You didn't exactly understand me, though.
Uriah, what is this?
As you didn't understand me, Master Copperfield, I may take the liberty of humbly mentioning, being among friends, that I have called Dr. Strong's attention to the goings-on of Mrs. Strong. I've mentioned to Dr. Strong that anyone may see that Mr. Malden and the lovely and agreeable lady as is Dr. Strong's wife are too sweet on one another. Really, the time has come when Dr. Strong must be told that this was full as plain to everybody before Mr. Malden went to India. That Mr. Malden made excuses to come back for nothing else, and that he's always here for nothing else. I was just putting it to my partner, Mr. Wickfield, that he'd been of this opinion long ago.
Wickfield? For God's sake, my dear doctor, don't put too much weight on any suspicions I might have had.
There. What a melancholy confirmation. I've seen Mr. Wickfield in quite a taking about it. Very proper in him as a father. I can't blame him. To think Miss Agnes was mixing herself up with what oughtn't to be.
You've had doubts, Wickfield. You've had doubts.
Speak up, fellow partner.
I had at one time, God forgive me. I thought you had.
No.
I thought you wanted to send Malden abroad to effect a separation.
No. To give Annie pleasure by helping her childhood companion. Nothing else.
I couldn't doubt it when you told me so, but I thought that where there was so much disparity in years, that a lady of such youth and attractions, however real her respect for you, might have been influenced in marrying you by worldly considerations only. But please, I make no allowance for innumerable feelings and circumstances that may all have tended to good. For heaven's sake, remember
How kind
that.
he puts it.
I'm forced to confess now, having no escape, that I did doubt her and think her wanting in her duty to you, and, if I must say everything, I did not want Agnes to be in such a familiar relationship to your wife that she would see what I saw, or fancied I saw. I know this is terrible for you to hear, but if you knew how terrible it is for me to tell, you'd feel compassion for me.
I'm sure this is very unpleasant for everybody. But since we've got so far, I ought to take the liberty of mentioning that Copperfield has noticed it too.
How dare you bring me in?
When I spoke to you the other night, you did know what I meant. Don't deny it, Copperfield.
You too, Trotwood.
You see, Doctor?
I have been much to blame. I have exposed my wife to suspicions, to accusations, which, but for me, could never have been levelled against her. Gentlemen, I am an old man now. I don't feel tonight that I have much to live for. But my life upon the truth and honour of the dear lady I married. I may have unwittingly ensnared that lady into an unhappy marriage. I admit that. I married my Annie when she was very young. I knew her father well. I knew her well. I taught her what I could for the love of her beautiful and virtuous qualities. And if I did wrong in taking advantage of her gratitude and affection, I ask her pardon in my heart.
Her pardon?
All that is left for me now is to bear the knowledge of the unhappiness I've caused and save her from cruel misconstruction. And when my death releases her, I shall close my eyes on her honoured face with unbounded confidence and love, and leave her to happier and brighter days. Gentlemen, I have shown you my heart. I'm sure you will respect it. What we have said tonight is never to be said again. Wickfield, give me an old friend's arm upstairs.
Of course, Doctor.
Thank you.
Well, Master Copperfield, this hasn't quite took the turn that might have been expected. For the old scholar is as blind as a brickbat. But this family is out of the cart, I think.
How dared you appeal to me as if we discussed it? You villain!
You didn't ought to have done that, Copperfield. Have you taken leave of your senses?
I've taken leave of you. I'll know no more of you.
Well, won't you? Perhaps you won't be able to help it.
I've shown you often enough that I despise you. Now I've shown it more plainly.
Copperfield, you've always gone against me.
You may think what you like.
And yet I've always liked you. There must be two parties to a quarrel. I won't be one.
You may go to the devil!
Don't say that. You'll be sorry afterwards. How can you make yourself so inferior to me as to show such a bad spirit? But I forgive you.
You forgive me?
I do. To think of you attacking me. That's always been your friend. But there can't be a quarrel without two parties, and I won't be one. I won't mention this to a living soul, not even Mother. I'll be a friend to you in spite of yourself. But I do wonder you should lift your hand against a person that you know to be so humble.
The damage Uriah had done could not be undone. As the weeks went on, unhappiness stole over the Strongs' household. The doctor's loving gentleness to his wife was greater than ever, but she sensed a change in him, and a sad shadow fell upon her beauty and deepened every day. About this time, I received a very unexpected communication from Mrs. Micawber.
You will doubtless be surprised, my dear Mr. Copperfield, to receive this letter, still more so by its contents. Still more so by the stipulation of implicit confidence which I beg to impose. There's always been a spirit of mutual confidence between myself and Mr. Micawber, whom I will never desert. Picture my feelings when I tell you that Mr. Micawber is entirely changed. He is reserved. He is secret. His life is a mystery to the partner of his joys and sorrows, but that is not all. He is morose. He is severe. He is estranged from his son and daughter. He has no pride in his twins. He even looks with an eye of coldness on the unoffending stranger who last became a member of our circle. The pecuniary means of meeting our expenses are obtained from him with great difficulty, and even under fearful threats that he will settle himself. This is hard to bear. This is heartbreaking. If you will advise me, you will add another obligation to the many you've already rendered me. With love from the children, and a smile from the happily unconscious stranger, I remain, dear Mr. Copperfield, your afflicted Emma Micawber.
All I could advise was that she should try and reclaim Mr. Micawber by patience and kindness, as I knew she would in any case. But her letter set me thinking about him a great deal. And now, as I try to recall my memories of that time, weeks, months, seasons pass rapidly away, seeming no more than a summer day and a winter evening. But a great deal has changed for me in that day and evening. I am 21 years old, and I am an author. I've had a little something published in a magazine, and now I write, and am paid for, a good many other little somethings. I have moved from Buckingham Street to a pleasant little cottage in Highgate, which for the moment I share with my aunt. For the moment only. She is to move to another little cottage close by. What does this portend? My marriage, of course. I am, at last, to be married to Dora.
Oh, congratulations, my dear Copperfield. I couldn't be happier for you. Married? Well, Trotwood, what good news. I shall make a note of it in the memorial.
Dora has her trousseau. I have the license. We shop together for household necessities, and end by buying a Chinese pagoda for Jip, with little bells on top that ring when he goes in and out, and frighten him horribly. Traddles is to be my best man.
I hope you'll soon be in the same situation yourself, my dear fellow.
I hope so too. Thank you, Copperfield. It's a satisfaction to know Sophie will wait for me any length of time, and that she really is the dearest girl.
And now comes the day itself.
God bless you, Trot. My own boy could never be dearer. I think of your poor dear mother this morning.
So do I. And of all I owe to you.
Oh, child, that's been more than repaid.
My aunt is dressed in lavender-coloured silk and has a white bonnet on, and is amazing. Mr. Dick, who is to give my darling to me at the altar, has had his hair curled. Traddles presents a dazzling combination of cream colour and bright blue, and both he and Mr. Dick have a general effect about them of being all gloves. The rest is all a more or less incoherent dream.
By joining of hands, I pronounce that they be man and wife together.
Oh, Dora.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost.
Amen. There is a breakfast with abundance of things. I eat them without any perception of their flavour, as always happens in dreams. And then Dora has changed her dress, and we are ready to leave. Almost.
Oh, I've forgotten my purse. Dodie, where is it? I laid it down somewhere.
Here it is, Mrs. Copperfield.
Oh, Agnes, thank you. Mrs. Copperfield. It sounds so strange. But where's Jip? He's run away. I know he's run away. He's upset.
No, he isn't. He's here. I've got him.
Oh, thank you, Traddles. Give him to me.
No, Dodie, you mustn't. I'll take him. If I don't, he'll think I don't like him now I'm married, and he'll break his heart. There, Jip. Jip, darling. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Good luck. Happy honeymoon.
If I've been cross and ungrateful to anybody, please don't remember it.
Dear sweetheart, on your wedding day.
The tears of joy. Are you happy now, you foolish boy?
The happiest man in the world.
So I was. But when the honeymoon was over, it was strange to have Dora always there with me, in our own small house. No more scheming and devising opportunities to be alone with her. No one to please but one another. One another to please. For life. 2 young birds couldn't have known less about keeping house than I and my pretty Dora did. We had a servant, Mary Ann. I think she must have been Mrs. Crupp's daughter. She gave us such an awful time.
My dearest life, do you think Mary Ann has any idea of time?
Why, Dodie?
Because it's 5. And we were to have dined at 4.
The clock's fast, perhaps.
No. My watch tells me that it's a few minutes slow.
You bad boy, don't worry about dinner. It will arrive in time. There. Are you better now?
That was very agreeable, my dearest. But we can't dine off kisses. Don't you think you should speak to Mary Ann?
Oh, no, please, I couldn't.
Why not?
Because I'm such a little goose, and she knows I am.
But my love...
Please don't be serious.
But we must be serious sometimes. It isn't exactly comfortable to have to go without dinner now, is it?
No.
You're trembling.
Yes. Because I know you're going to scold me.
I'm only going to reason.
But reasoning's worse than scolding. I didn't marry to be reasoned with. If you want to reason with a poor little thing like me, you ought to have told me so, you cruel boy.
Dora, my darling,
No, I'm not your darling. You must be sorry that you married me, or you wouldn't reason with me.
Dora, my own, you're being childish. You're talking nonsense. I had to go to the house yesterday when dinner was half over. The day before, I ate underdone veal in a hurry and felt quite ill.
Oh.
And today we don't dine at all. And I'm afraid to say how long we waited for breakfast.
Bertie!
I don't mean to reproach you, but this is not comfortable.
How cruel of you to say I'm a disagreeable wife.
I never said that.
You said I wasn't comfortable.
I said the housekeeping wasn't comfortable.
It's exactly the same thing.
I'm not blaming you, Dora. We've both got a great deal to learn. I'm only trying to show you really must get used to looking after Mary Ann. You must act a little for yourself. And for me.
I wonder at your making such ungrateful speeches. Why, the other day when you said you'd like a bit of fish, I went miles and miles and ordered it to surprise you.
And it was very kind of you, darling. So kind, I didn't even mention that you'd bought a salmon, which was much too much for two, or that it cost more than we can afford.
Oh, you enjoyed it very much, you know you did. And you said I was a little mouse.
Oh, and I'll say so again 1,000 times, but... Oh, Dora!
She was not to be comforted, and I had to hurry away to the house. Parliament sat late, and by the time I got back home in the early hours of the morning, I was wretchedly remorseful.
Trotwood, is that you?
Aunt, is anything the matter?
Nothing. Little Blossom's been rather out of spirits, and I've been keeping her company, that's all.
All I meant to do was to speak to her tenderly and lovingly about our home affairs.
I know. You must have patience, Trot. Remember, Little Blossom is a very tender little blossom, and the wind must be gentle with her.
I know that, and I am gentle. I assure you I am. Do you think that perhaps you could advise and counsel Dora a little, now and then?
No, don't ask me to do such a thing.
But why not?
I look back on my life, and I think of some who are in their graves with whom I might have been on kinder terms. I've been a grumpy, frumpy, wayward sort of woman for many years, but you and I have done each other good. At least, you've done me good, and division must not come between us now.
Division? Between us?
It might happen if I meddled in this. These are early days, Trot. You've chosen for yourself, and you've chosen a very pretty, very affectionate little creature.
Oh, she is.
Then estimate her for the quality she has, not for the quality she may not have. Those you must develop in her, if you can. And if you cannot, you must get used to doing without him. Your future's between the two of you. No one else can help. This is marriage, Trot. And heaven bless you both in it, for a pair of babes in the wood as you are.
But our domestic trials went on. We had to dismiss Mary Ann, who went mildly, to my surprise, till I found she'd taken the teaspoons with her. Her successes, all short-lived, were no improvement. However, in defiance of our domestic limitations, I invited Traddles to dinner.
Here's our friend Traddles, Jip.
Oh,
no. You know Traddles?
Personally, I could have wished Jip hadn't been encouraged to walk about the tablecloth during dinner.
Jip?
Especially as he tended to put his foot in the butter.
Oh, dear. I'll take him. There, Jip.
Dora, my love, what have you got in that dish?
Oysters.
Was that your idea?
Yes.
But that was a very happy thought. There's nothing Traddles likes better.
Indeed there isn't.
Yes, I bought a beautiful little barrel of them, and the man said they were very good. But there's something wrong with them.
Oh, well, take the tops off.
They won't come off.
Let me see. Copperfield, I think it's because they're capital oysters, mind you, but I think it's because they haven't been opened. Do you have an oyster knife?
No.
Ah.
And so we looked at the oysters and ate the mutton. At least we ate as much of the mutton as was done. I think Traddles would have eaten a plateful of raw meat to pretend he'd enjoyed his dinner, but I wouldn't let him. So we had cold bacon instead, and drank the wine, and had quite a happy evening. When I'd seen Traddles out and come back into the parlour, I found Dora very subdued.
I'm so very sorry. Will you try to teach me, Dodie?
I must teach myself first. I'm as bad as you are.
But you can learn. You're a clever, clever man.
Nonsense.
I wish I could have gone down into the country for a whole year and lived with Agnes.
Why?
I think I might have learnt from her.
Oh, but Agnes has taken care of her father for many years. Even when she was quite a child, she was the Agnes we know now.
Dodie.
Yes?
Will you call me a name I want you to call me?
What is it?
It's a stupid name. Child wife.
Why do you want me to call you that, dearest?
I don't mean you should use the name instead of Dora. I only mean you should think of me that way. When you're going to be angry with me, say to yourself, it's only my child wife. When you miss what I should like to be, and I think I can never be, say, still, my foolish child wife loves me. For indeed I do.
I shall always remember this little speech of hers. It moved me very much. But I'm afraid that although she tried very hard to be what she called a wonderful housekeeper, nothing went quite right.
26 plus 18 plus 34 is... Oh dear, Dodie, it comes out different every time. Oh, Jip, you naughty dog. Now I'll have to start all over again.
Jip had walked across the page and smeared it into illegibility. I'm afraid this was how Dora's accounting usually ended. I had a great deal of work to do, and many anxieties, but I kept them to myself. Dora was happier now, and that was the important thing. Meanwhile, Annie Strong's mother, Mrs. Markleham, had taken up permanent residence under the doctor's roof.
My dear soul, you know there is no doubt it would be a little poky for Annie to be always shut up here.
Of course, of course.
When she comes to her mother's age, it'll be another thing. Oh, you're the best of creatures. But of course you don't enter into the same pursuits and fancies as Annie.
No, indeed not.
No. And therefore, I am entirely at your service. I am ready to go with Annie to operas, concerts, exhibitions, all sorts of places, and you'll never find that I am tired. Duty before every consideration in the universe.
Trotwood?
Mr. Dick, come in.
I'm not a nuisance.
Not in the least.
Trotwood, before I sit down, I wish to make an observation. You know your aunt?
A little.
Oh, she's the most wonderful woman in the world, sir.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to put a question to you.
As many as you please.
What do you consider me?
A dear old friend.
Thank you. But I mean, boy, what do you consider me in respect of... In respect of my head, you know?
Well...
Weak?
Perhaps. A little.
Exactly. But when they took some of the trouble out of you-know-whose head and put it you-know-where, there was a muddle, a confusion. Something was done to me somehow. Eh?
Yes.
Well, in short, boy, I'm simple.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
Yes, I am. She pretends I'm not, but I know I am. If she hadn't stood my friend, I'd have been shut up. Now, you're a scholar, sir. You know what a learned man, what a great man the doctor is, and not proud. Humble even to poor Dick, who's simple and knows nothing. And his beautiful wife is a star. But clouds, sir. Clouds. What clouds are they?
There's an unfortunate division between them. A secret.
Doctor not angry with her?
No, devoted to her.
The most wonderful woman in the world. Why's she done nothing to set it right?
Too delicate a subject for interference.
A fine scholar. Why's he done nothing?
For the same reason.
Then I've got it, boy.
What?
I'll bring them together. They'll not blame me. If it's wrong, I'm only Mr. Dick. And who minds Dick? Dick's nobody. Leave all the blame with simple Dick, mad Dick. All right?
I heard no more about this matter for 2 or 3 weeks, so I concluded he had forgotten his intention, as might have been expected. However, one fine evening, my aunt and I strolled up to the doctor's cottage and found him in his study with Mrs. Markleham ensconced in her usual easy chair. Hardly had the doctor greeted us when, to our astonishment, Annie Strong glided in, pale and trembling, on Mr. Dick's arm, and dropped to her knees at her husband's feet.
Annie, my dear, what is this?
Please, let no one leave this room.
No one leave this room.
My dearest husband, what has come between us?
Annie, get up at once.
My dear, if our lives changed, you are not to blame. The fault is mine.
If any friend here knows any reason for the barrier that has arisen between us, please will they speak?
Now, Trotwood?
Mrs. Strong, I do know something. Dr. Strong asked me to keep it secret, but I believe the time has come for me to speak.
Trotwood, no.
Yes, Doctor. Believe me. It's best that your wife should know the truth. Mrs. Strong, Uriah Heep, a curse upon him, came to Dr. Strong with wicked allegations.
What were they?
It was about your friendship with your cousin, Mr. Malden.
What is this?
It was an evil slander. We all knew that. Dr. Strong most of all. But it pained him because he felt perhaps that he had taken advantage of your innocent trust and tied you to an older man when you might have been happier with your childhood friend, so much nearer your own age.
Annie, my dearest, if that is so, I humbly ask your pardon.
If that is so... No! No! Now I must open my heart to the husband I have loved and venerated more and more, day by day and year by year.
There is no necessity for going into these details, Annie.
No one but my husband can judge that, Mamma. When I was very young, I had a patient friend and teacher, the friend of my dead father. As I grew up, I was very attached to him. When you presented him to me as a lover, Mamma, I was distressed at first. It was so great a change from the character in which I'd looked up to him for so long. But I was proud that he should think me worthy. And so we were married.
Yes, at St. Alphege, Canterbury.
I never thought of any worldly gains my husband would bring to me. Forgive me, Mamma, but it was you who first put in my mind the thought that anyone could wrong me, and wrong him by such a cruel suspicion.
Me?
It was the first unhappiness of my new life. I know you never urged for yourself, Mamma. But, my dear husband, when I saw how many importunate claims were pressed on you in my name, how generous you were, and how your friend Mr. Wickfield resented it, I realized the possibility of a suspicion that my tenderness was bought and sold to you.
Well,
I can't tell you what it meant to have this always on my mind, yet know in my heart that my marriage crowned the love and honor of my life.
So, that's all the thanks I get for taking care of my family. Good night to you.
Go on, my dear. Go on.
It was at that time that Mamma was most solicitous about my cousin, Jack Malden. I'd liked him very much. If circumstances hadn't happened otherwise, I might have married him and been most wretched. There can be no disparity in marriage like unsuitability of mind and purpose. And we have nothing in common. If I'd nothing else to thank my husband for, I'd be thankful to him for having saved me from the first mistaken impulse of an undisciplined heart.
Oh, Annie.
I thought Jack Malden would have done better to have worked his own way on, but I thought no worse of him until the night he left for India. Then he spoke to me in such terms that I found he had a false and thankless heart. Years have passed since Jack Malden knew from me what his situation here was. I've never exchanged a word with him since then, save in your presence. You can never know what it was to be devoted to you, and to find that it was supposed my heart was bartered away.
Granny, my pure heart.
Now I know the reason for the change in you which has caused me so much pain. But I know, too, how great your trust in me is. I may never be worthy of it, but I can solemnly declare that I have never wronged you, never waned in the love and fidelity I owe you.
Oh, my dear.
Don't think of any disparity between us, for there is none. Every year I've known this better. Oh, take me to your heart, my husband, for my love was founded on a rock, and it endures.
My dearest girl, come, get up. Come.
Well done, Mr. Dick.
Thank you.
You are a very remarkable man.
Mrs. Markleham was quite overcome, I'm afraid.
What? Did you ever see a crocodile overcome?
I don't think I've ever seen a crocodile.
Oh, if only some mothers would leave their daughters alone after marriage. Trot, you're very quiet. What are you thinking of?
I was thinking of all that had been said. There can be no disparity in marriage like unsuitability of mind and purpose. The first mistaken impulse of an undisciplined heart. I must have been married about a year or so, when one evening, as I was returning from a solitary walk, thinking of the book I was writing, I passed Mrs. Steerforth's house. I would have gone by quickly, for it was not a happy place to me. But a woman's voice stopped me.
If you please, sir, would you have the goodness to walk in and speak to Miss Dartle?
Has Miss Dartle sent you for me?
Not tonight, sir, but when she saw you pass a night or two ago, she asked me to watch for you and call you in if I saw you again.
How is Miss Dartle?
Miss Dartle is well, sir.
And Mrs. Steerforth?
I'm afraid my lady is but poorly, sir. She keeps her own room a good deal. You'll find Miss Dartle on the veranda.
I'm told you wish to speak to me, Miss Dartle.
If you please. Has that girl been found?
No.
And yet she's run away, I hear.
Run away?
I hear so, yes. From him. If she's not found, perhaps she may never be found. She may be dead.
To wish her dead may be the kindest wish another woman could make for her. I'm glad time has softened you so much.
Do you want to know what is known of her?
Yes.
You will restrain any thought of vengeance here, Mr. Copperfield.
Of course.
You may come here now.
Good evening, sir.
Latimer.
Latimer, tell Mr. Copperfield what you have told me.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. James and myself have been abroad with a young woman ever since she left Yarmouth under Mr. James' protection. We've been in a variety of places. France, Switzerland, Italy. Mr. James took quite uncommonly to the young woman. She was very improvable and spoke the languages and wouldn't have been known for the same country person. She was much admired wherever we went. But she was occasionally low in her spirits, and this began to weary Mr. James, and things were not so comfortable.
Go on.
Mr. James began to become restless, and I had a difficult time between them. At last, after a good many words and reproaches, he set off one morning from the neighbourhood of Naples, where we had a villa, and under pretence of coming back in a day or so, left in charge with me to break it that, for the general happiness of all concerned, he was gone.
He deserted her.
The young woman's violence when I broke it to her was beyond all expectations. If I hadn't been on my guard, I think she'd have had my blood.
I think the better of her for it.
It was necessary to shut her up close, that she might not do herself or anyone else an injury. Nevertheless, she got out in the night, forced the lattice of a window, and hasn't been heard of since.
She is dead, perhaps.
She may have drowned herself, ma'am, or she may have had assistance in her escape from the boatmen or their wives. When it was clear that she was not to be found, I went to Mr. James at the place where it had been agreed that I should write to him, and told him what had occurred. Words passed between us in consequence, and I felt it due to my character to leave him. I took the liberty of coming to England and relating all this here.
For money which I paid him.
Just so, ma'am.
I could wish to ask this creature whether they intercepted a letter that was written to her from home.
It is not probable that Mr. James would encourage the receipt of letters likely to increase low spirits and unpleasantness. Further than that, I should wish to avoid going.
Is that all you wish to ask, Mr. Copperfield?
Yes. Except that I understand this fellow's part in the wicked story, and I shall make it known to the honest man who's been her father since childhood. So I wouldn't recommend his going too much in public.
You'll excuse me if I say, sir, that people are not allowed to take the law into their own hands in this country. Consequently, I am not afraid of going where I wish.
You may leave us.
Ma'am?
He says, besides, that his master is coasting Spain, and this done is a way to gratify his seafaring tastes till he's weary. But that's of no interest to you. This low girl he picked out of the tide mud may be alive, for I believe some common things are hard to die.
Miss Dartle!
If she is, you'll desire to have a pearl of such price found and taken care of. We wish that too, that he may not be made her prey again. So thus we're united in our interest, and that's why I sent for you.
Rosa?
Yes.
Is Mr. Copperfield informed of everything?
Yes.
I'm grateful to you. Mr. Copperfield, if, by the course which may relieve the mind of the decent man you brought here, for whom I'm sorry, my son may be saved from again falling into the hands of a designing enemy, it is well.
Madam, I understand. But if you think that Emily is so deeply wronged, would not rather die 100 deaths than take a cup of water from your son's hand now, you make a terrible mistake.
You are married, sir, I'm told.
Yes.
And are doing well? I understand you're beginning to be famous.
I've been very fortunate.
You have no mother.
No.
It is a pity. She would have been proud of you. I bid you good evening.
I took the hand she held out to me. It was as calm in mine as if her breast had been at peace. On the following evening, I went in search of Mr. Peggotty. I found him at a lodging he kept in Hungerford Market, and I told him all that Littimer had said.
She's alive, sir. Emily's alive. I've knowed it, awake and sleeping.
Mr. Peggotty, if Emily doesn't go home...
She won't go home. If she'd left him of her own accord, she might, but not as 'tis.
If she should come here to London, there is one person more likely to discover her than any other in the world.
Hmm?
Do you remember Martha?
Of our town?
Yes. Did you know she's in London?
I've seen her in the streets.
But you don't know that Emily was charitable to her, with Ham's help, before she fled from home. Nor that when we met that night at the Golden Cross and spoke together, she listened at the door.
That night it snowed so hard?
That night. She's the person who might find Emily. Do you understand?
Too well, sir.
You say you've seen Martha. Do you think you could find her?
I think I know where to look, Master Davy.
Then shall we go out now and try to find her tonight?
Well, if so be as you think it right, sir. Time was when I thought this girl Martha almost like the dirt under my Emily's feet. God forgive me, there's a difference now.
He took me into the city, and we were not far from Blackfriars Bridge when we saw her. We followed her down to the river by a deserted, low-lying street, where she stood gazing at the dark water.
The river. I can't keep away from it. That's the only thing in the world I feel fit for now.
Martha!
Oh, leave me! Did you leave me, sir?
Martha! We are friends. Mr. Peggotty! Shh. We followed you a long way tonight. Do you know who this is with me?
Martha?
Yes.
Do you remember that snowy night? The night you listened at the door?
Yes. Oh, do you tell him, sir, that I were never the cause of his misfortune?
No one ever thought you were.
I should have been in the river long ago if any wrong to him had been on my mind.
We know why Emily ran away. We know you had no part in it.
The bitterest thought on my mind was that people would remember she once kept company with me and would say I'd corrupted her when I'd have died to brought back her good name. Died. Well, that wouldn't have been much. I'd have lived to be old in the wretched streets. I'd have done even that to save her.
Martha, listen now. I've been far to seek my dear niece. More dear to me now than ever she was. According to our reckoning, she's like one day to make her own poor solitary way to London. Help us to find her, and may heaven reward you.
Then you would trust me?
Full and free.
To speak to her, if I find her, to shelter her, and then, without her knowledge, to come to you and bring you to her?
Yes.
I promise you, I will do this.
It was midnight when I got back to Highgate. As I passed my aunt's cottage, I was surprised to see that the door was open, and that a man was standing in her little garden. He had a glass and a bottle in his hand, and was eating and drinking with a hungry appetite. I recognized the beggar I had once encountered with my aunt in the city.
Is that all you mean to give me?
It is all I can give you. I told you I have had losses. Why do you give me the pain of looking at you and seeing what you have become?
I've become shabby enough, if you mean that. I lead the life of an owl.
You stripped me of the greater part of all I ever had. You treated me falsely, ungratefully, and cruelly.
That's all very fine.
Aunt!
Who's that?
Go. Go quickly for your own sake. I told you I cannot do more.
Oh, well, I must do the best I can. For the present, I suppose.
Stop!
Trotwood! No!
That's the same man, isn't it? Has he been troubling you again? Who is he?
Who is he? Oh, give me a moment, child.
Aunt.
He is my husband.
Your husband?
Yes. Betsy Trotwood don't look a likely subject for the tender passion, but time was when she loved that man right well. He repaid her by breaking her fortune and nearly breaking her heart. So she put all that sort of sentiment once and forever in a grave and filled it up and flattened it down.
My dear, good aunt.
I left him generously. He had been so cruel to me, I might have effected a separation on easy terms for myself, but I did not. He made ducks and drakes of what I gave him, sank lower and lower, married another woman, I believe, and became an adventurer, a gambler and a cheat. What he is now, you see. But he was a fine-looking man when I married him. Oh, he's nothing to me now. I was a fool when I married him, and I am so far an incurable fool that for the sake of what I once believed him to be, I would not have him hardly dealt with.
Aunt Betsy.
There, my dear. Now you know all about it. We will not mention the subject to one another again.
This is my grumpy, frumpy story, And we will keep it to ourselves, Trot.
She dismissed the matter with a heavy sigh, smoothed her dress, and kissed me good night. I had been married for about a year and a half. My book had been very successful, and in general, I'd been writing very prosperously. I had given up trying to change Dora. It had dawned on me at last that my attempts to form her mind were never successful, because her mind was already formed. I always loved her, and I was happy. But the happiness I'd vaguely anticipated was not the happiness I enjoyed. There was something wanting. I hoped once that a baby smile at her breast might change my child wife into a woman, but it was not to be. The spirit fluttered for a moment on the threshold of its little prison, and, unconscious of captivity, took wing. Dora had never been strong, and I knew it would take her a little while to recover.
There, Jip, there. When I can run about as I used to do, Aunt, I shall make Jip race. He's getting quite slow and lazy.
I suspect, my dear, that he has a worse disorder than that. Age, Dora.
Do you think he's old? Oh, how strange it seems that Jip should be old.
It's a condition we are all liable to as we get on in life. I don't feel more free from it than I used to be.
But Jip, even little Jip.
I dare say he'll last a long time yet, Blossom. He must have a piece of flannel in his house this winter, and I should not wonder if he came out quite fresh again with the flowers in spring. Hey, Jip. Oh, bless the little dog. I believe he'd bark at me with his last breath.
Even little Jip? Oh, poor fellow.
His lungs are good enough, and his dislikes are not at all feeble. He has a good many years before him, no doubt. But if you want a dog to race with, Jip's lived too well for that. I'll give you one for frolicking.
Thank you, Aunt. But please don't.
No?
I couldn't love any other dog but Jip. It would be so unkind. You see, I couldn't be such friends with any other dog because he wouldn't have known me before I was married and wouldn't have barked at Dodie when he first came to our house. I couldn't care for any other dog but Jip, I'm afraid.
To be sure. You are right, little Blossom.
He's known me in all that's happened to me. Haven't you, Jip? I couldn't bear to slight him because he was a little altered.
My pretty Dora. We thought she would be running about as she used to in a few days. But they said wait a few days more, and a few days more, and still she neither ran nor walked. I began to carry her downstairs every morning and upstairs every night. She looked very pretty, and she was very merry about it.
Oh, what a lazy wife you've got, Dodie. Jip, dear, don't get under Dodie's feet.
Have you got the pillows, Aunt?
Yes, and little Blossom shawl.
I'm not too heavy for my boy to carry. Poor Dodie, he has to work so hard now.
No, my darling, you're not too heavy. Indeed, day by day she seemed lighter in my arms. Sometimes, when I took her up, a dead, blank feeling came over me, as if I were approaching some frozen region, yet unseen, that numbed my life. Little Blossom. Oh, what a fatal name it was, and how the blossom withered in its bloom upon the tree.
My dear sir, the distinguished elevation to which your talents have raised you deters me from presuming to aspire to take the liberty of addressing the companion of my youth by the familiar appellation of Copperfield. It is not for one situated as is the foundered bark to adopt the language of compliment or congratulation. This he leaves to abler and to purer hands. May I be permitted to observe that my peace is shattered, my power of enjoyment destroyed, my heart is no longer in the right place, and I no more walk erect before my fellow men. It is my intention to fly from myself for a short period, to visit some metropolitan scenes of past enjoyment. My feet will naturally tend towards the King's Bench prison. In stating that I shall be outside the south wall of that place of incarceration the day after tomorrow at 7 in the evening, my object in this epistolary communication is accomplished. I do not feel warranted in soliciting my former friend Mr. Copperfield and my former friend Mr. Thomas Traddles to condescend to meet me. I confine myself to throwing out the observation that at the hour and place I have indicated may be found such ruined vestiges as yet remain of a fallen tower. Wilkins, Micawber. P.S. Mrs. Micawber is not in possession of my intentions. Mr. Traddles, sir. My dear Copperfield, you are friends in need and friends indeed. Allow me to inquire about the physical welfare of Mrs. Copperfield.
Dora is not so well, I'm afraid. She is convalescing. We lost our first child.
Oh, I am distressed to hear that. Let us hope that the fecundity that has blessed my own union will one day be enjoyed by yours, my dear Copperfield.
And how is your family? And how is Mrs. Micawber?
Thank you. She is but so-so. And this, my friends, is the King's Bench prison. The Bench, where there was no knocker on the door for any creditor to appeal to, and detainers were merely lodged at the gate. Ah, when I was an inmate of this place, I could look my fellow man in the face and punch his head if he offended me. My fellow man and myself are no longer on such glorious terms.
Oh, you are in low spirits, Mr. Micawber.
I am, sir.
How is our friend Heep?
Whatever his state of health may be, his appearance is foxy, not to say diabolical. Forgive me. I decline to pursue a subject that has lashed me to the verge of desperation.
Oh. Then may I ask how my old friends Mr. and Miss Wickfield are?
Miss Wickfield is the only starry spot in a miserable existence. My respect for that young lady, my admiration of her character, her love and truth and goodness.
Oh, my dear fellow.
Take me down a side street, for on my soul, in my present state of mind, I am not equal to this.
Oh, come, Mr. Micawber. Ride out to Highgate with us. I'll introduce you to my aunt, and you can make us a glass of your own punch and forget whatever it is you have on your mind.
Or confide it to us, if that will relieve you.
Gentlemen, I am a straw on the surface of the deep, and am tossed in all directions by the elephants. I beg your pardon, I should have said elements. But thank you, Copperfield, I accept. I accept with gratitude.
You are a very old friend of my nephew's, I know, Mr. Micawber. I wish I had had the pleasure of seeing you before.
Madam, I wish I'd had the honour of knowing you at an earlier period. I was not always the wreck you at present behold.
Here you are, Mr. Micawber. Lemons, sugar, rum, and a kettle just boiled. Mr. Micawber makes a splendid bowl of punch, Aunt.
I've no doubt he does. I hope Mrs. Micawber and your family are well, sir?
They are as well, ma'am, as aliens and outcasts can ever hope to be.
Lord bless you, sir, what are you talking about?
The subsistence of my family, ma'am, trembles in the balance.
Mr. Micawber.
My employer, Mr. Heep, once observed that if I were not in receipt of the stipendiary emoluments appertaining to my engagement with him, I should probably be a mountebank about the country, swallowing a sword blade and eating the devouring element.
Mr. Micawber.
For anything that I can perceive to the contrary, it is still probable that my children may be reduced to seek a livelihood by personal contortion, while Mrs. Micawber abets their unnatural feats by playing on the barrel organ.
Mr. Micawber, you're trying to pour water from a candlestick.
My dear Copperfield, this is an occupation above all others, requiring an untroubled mind and self-respect. I cannot perform it. It is out of the question.
My dear sir, what is the matter?
Speak out. You're among friends.
Villainy is the matter. Baseness is the matter. Deception, fraud, conspiracy are the matter. And the name of the whole atrocious mass is Heep.
I knew it!
The struggle is over. I will lead this life no longer. Give me back my wife. Give me back my family. Substitute Micawber for the petty wretch who walks about in the boots at present on my feet. And call upon me to swallow a sword tomorrow, and I'll do it with an appetite.
Mr. Micawber, come, sit down. Let me get...
I shall partake of no man's hospitality till I have moved Mount Vesuvius to erupt upon the abominable rascal Heep. Refreshment under this roof would choke me, unless I had previously choked the eyes out of the head of interminable cheat, liar, and hypocrite. Heep!
With the last repetition of this magic word, he rushed out of the house. Later, a note was brought from a neighbouring tavern, requesting us all to meet that day week at a small hotel in Canterbury.
Whereafter, the act of reparation performed, which can alone enable me to contemplate my fellow mortal, I shall be known no more. Wilkins, Micawber.
About a fortnight after this, on the second evening in Mr. Micawber's week of suspense, I was walking alone in the garden when I saw a woman's figure in the road before the house, beckoning to me.
Martha! Can you come with me? I've been to Mr. Peggotty, but he weren't in. I wrote down where he were to come and left it on his table. I have news. Can you come?
Of course.
Will this suit you, sir?
Martha?
Yes, hurry!
We hurried along a dark street of poor lodging houses. We went into one of these and began to climb the common staircase. As we climbed to the top story, I saw ahead of us a female figure. She paused for a second at a door, then she turned the handle and went in.
Shh! Move in here where you can see without being seen.
We were in a small, empty garret with a sloping roof. The back door to Martha's room was slightly open. I could not see Miss Dartle, for hers was the figure we had glimpsed, nor could I see the person she was addressing. But we could hear. Oh, yes. We could hear.
It matters little that she's not at home. I know nothing of her. It's you I came to see.
Me?
Yes, I've come to look at you. You're not ashamed of the face that has done so much, are you? I've come to see James Steerforth's fancy. The girl who ran away with him and is the town talk of the commonest people of her native place. The bold, flaunting, practised companion of people like James Steerforth.
No, please.
Stay there. Stay, or I'll proclaim you to the house and the whole street. If you try to escape me, I'll stop you if it's by the hair.
Where was Mr. Peggotty? It was for him to find her, for him to save her.
So, I see her at last. Why, he was a poor creature to be taken in by that delicate mock modesty, that hanging head.
For heaven's sake, spare me! Whoever you are, you know my wretched story. Spare me, if you'd be spared yourself.
If I'd be spared? What is there in common between us?
Nothing but our sex.
Our sex? You're an honour to our sex.
You deserve this, but that's dreadful. Dear lady, think what I've suffered and how I'm fallen. Have some mercy on me. Give me some compassion or I shall die mad.
Do you know what you've done? Do you ever think of the home you've laid waste?
Oh, is there ever a night or day when I don't think of it? Have there been a single minute when that haven't been before me, as it used to be when I turned my back upon it forever and ever?
The miserable vanity of these earthworms. Your home. Do you imagine I give a thought to it? Or suppose you could do any harm to that low place which money wouldn't pay for, and handsomely? Your home. You were a part of the trade in your home, and were bought and sold like any other vendible thing.
No! No! You say anything of me, but never you visit my shame on folks who are as honourable as you. Do you have some respect for him if you have no mercy for me?
I speak of his home, where I live. Here's a worthy cause of division between lady mother and gentleman son. A worthy cause of grief in a house where you wouldn't have been admitted as a kitchen girl.
No. When he first come in my way, I'd been brought up as virtuous as you or any lady, and were going to be the wife of as good a man as you or any lady in the world can ever marry. If you live in his house and know him, you know perhaps what his power with a weak, vain girl might be. I don't defend myself, but I know, and he knows, or will know when he come to die and his mind is troubled with it, that he used all his powers to deceive me, and that I believed him, trusted him, and loved him.
You love him? You tell that to me? Why don't they whip these creatures? If I could order it to be done, I'd have this girl whipped to death. She loved that carrion, and she'll tell me he cared for her. The liars these traders are. You'd better seek that home of yours with all speed and hide your head among those excellent people whom your money will console. When it's all gone, you can believe and trust and love again, you know. I thought you a broken toy, a worthless spangle that was tarnished and thrown away. But finding you true gold, a lady, an ill-used innocent, which you look like, I have something more to say. Attend to it. For what I say, I'll do. Do you hear me?
Yes!
Hide yourself. Let it be somewhere beyond reach, in some obscure life, or better still, in some obscure death. I wonder if your loving heart won't break, that you found no way of helping it to be still. I have heard of such means. I believe they're easily found. I can't breathe freely in the air you breathe. Therefore, I'll have it cleansed. If you live here tomorrow, I'll have your story and your character proclaimed on the common staircase. If you seek refuge in this town, in any character but your true one, which you're welcome to bear, the same service shall be done you.
Oh, May! Oh, May, what shall I do?
Do consecrate your existence to the memory of James Steerforth's tenderness. Or if those memories will not sustain you, die. There are doorways and dust heaps for such deaths and such despair. Find one and take your flight to heaven.
I heard a distant foot upon the stairs. Mr. Peggotty.
But mark, I am resolved, for reasons that I have, and hatreds that I entertain, to cast you out, unless you withdraw from my sight altogether, or drop your pretty mask. This is what I had to say, and what I say I mean to do.
The foot upon the stairs came nearer, past Rosa Dartle as she went out, rushed into the room.
Uncle!
Emily!
Mr. Peggotty! Oh, thank God.
Yes, Master Davy. I thank my Heavenly Father as my dreams come true. I thank him hearty for having guided me in his own way to my darling.
He took her up in his arms and carried her, motionless and unconscious, down the stairs.
Thank God, sir. My niece is found.
She will stay with you for a time?
That she will. I've been long preparing for her and waiting for her.
And what of the future? Have you made up your mind?
That I have. And told Emily. There's mighty countries far from here. Our future life lies over the sea.
You'll emigrate?
Yes. I were at the docks early this morning. In 6 weeks from now there'll be a ship, and we'll go with her. No one can't reproach my darling in Australia.
Will you two go alone?
Aye. My sister's that fond of you and yourn. That wouldn't hardly be fair to let her go. Besides, there's one she has in charge as don't ought to be forgot.
Poor Ham.
Aye. Poor fellow. There ain't so much left him that he could spare the little as he has. Tomorrow, I go to Yarmouth to see what needs a doing down there. And most like to take my leave of him.
Would you wish me to go along with you?
Oh, if you could do me that kind favour, sir. I know the sight of you would cheer him up a bit.
Dora being in good spirits, and anxious that I should go, I undertook to accompany him. We were in Yarmouth the following night.